tonight. Today's topic deals with the prospect of Jesse Jackson as Democratic candidate. The Democratic Party has traditionally represented minorities and the working class. Jesse Jackson has been described as a charismatic politician, and his slogan is "Stop drugs, save jobs, secure our farms, invest in our children, and reinvest in America." Jackson is a humanist who represents the hope and the ideals of America that have recently been forgotten. Today's questions are, is he electable, and does the party support him? And my panel today is Matt Gilliard, Brooke Keogh, and Sean Roos. Who'd like to start? Matt?
Yes. Well, two reasons why I don't support Jesse Jackson as a candidate for Democratic president is that he's never held a political office before, and I think that's a big reason why he should not be the Democratic candidate. And also, I don't think America is ready for a religious man in the presidency yet, just yet.
Right, definitely. Talking about religion, I don't think we can have religion mixed because it's going to infringe on people's rights. People are going to be upset about that because everyone has their own opinion when it comes to religion. And we don't really know exactly what his view is, what he's going to do.
Right.
With that being a reverend and all.
Yeah. And that's not in his platform. He rarely addresses the fact that he's a reverend in his speeches and anything. He rarely addresses that fact, and he rarely talks about like prayer in school and what his stance is on that. You know, he might say, yes, I do agree with the ERA, and I do want it passed, and let's enact it. But he does never say anything about prayer in school.
Yeah, I think if he should...
And that raises a lot of eyebrows, I think.
But also, typically, religion and government have not mixed throughout history, and that has, been shown throughout history. So
I think he's afraid to show his religion because he feels that it'll probably ruin...
It'll count against him.
Yeah, it'll count against him, a strike
lose
against
votes.
him. Yeah, he'll lose votes. So I think he's trying to get away from him being a reverend. But I think he still wants people to know that he is a religious man, but he doesn't want it dramatized.
Right, yeah, and I think there's always been lots of turmoil because when you start getting religion in with politics and in with government, you start having moral laws and a moral code imposed upon the people, which we don't have right now.
So you're pressing your opinion.
We have a right and a wrong system, but that really is it's a non-religious, it's non-secular.
And getting back to what he stands for, he's not very specific.
Right.
I think what he needs to do is cite examples on how he's going to initiate these plans, with, stopping drugs, what actions is he going to take, what agency is he going to create. And I think the people need to hear that so they can feel more comfortable.
They're very undecided.
Right.
You'd say, on one hand, I like this, but I'm confused. It's very confusing. To me, it is.
He's such a controversial...
Right.
He's such a controversial candidate, and it's true. It's true about the problem-solving thing. He's like, he'll say something like, we need to give teachers better salaries.
Granted that.
Right.
But
you're right. We do. We
elaborate on that.
Right. Yeah, let's
He just
tell
tells
me about
people
it. Are
what they
you going to raise taxes? Are you going to shift? The way the budget's going to go? I mean, what exactly is he going to do?
Yeah, he just tells people what they want to hear.
Right, he's stating all the problems over again.
And of course, that must come from experience, and that's something he lacks. He's never, as like Matt mentioned before, he's never held a political office, and so therefore he's not experienced in the political game. And up in Washington, there is a game involved, and you know how to play it to get your bills passed through Congress and to initiate your plans and to get things moving. Because if you don't,
we've got presidents, and we've had the last two presidents have been governors of states, and both of them have had a rough time at first trying to figure out the political game plan within the federal government.
You need that experience. We're talking about the presidency here,
and that
affects all of us.
has not been touched on very much since since all the press with Jackson. There hasn't been that. It hasn't been a focus. It's more of a focus that the fact that he's black and he's a reverend, but they haven't really touched on his lacking in experience. And if he got the nomination, which is iffy in itself, but if he got that nomination, that's probably the main thing that I'm sure that Bush or whoever else the Republican nominee is going to be, that they're going to focus on. The man's never been elected.
Right. And I think also going back to what he stands for, I think what he's brought out into the media, and he's gotten plenty of media attention, is the things that we have forgotten in America. I mean, recently, with the Iran-Contra scandal, we have forgotten about our own selves. America and the people have lost faith in the government, and I think he's trying to reinstill
Pull
that
it
faith,
together.
pull it together, and make us one again. And I think that's an important aspect. But also, there's been talk that he's had the support of the whites. Well, he's had some support, but he lost the Wisconsin primary, which was a crucial one because that was when Dukakis and himself were neck and neck. And also, he does not have the support of the white working class, the elderly, and the low-income whites. So I don't understand where exactly he's getting this white support.
He represents change, and people, as Americans, many
are afraid of change.
They're afraid of change.
They're used to security.
He's, like we said before, he's confusing the issues are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's different.
Yeah. And he's also he's a man who
with a
has
message.
a lot, and he's got a lot of strong ideas. And the fact I'm really, really grateful to him for the fact that he's brought out many important problems that we have that the media is now covering and that they're now doing stories on. And, you need to keep it within the minds of the people so that they can make sure that their candidates, answer to these issues.
Right. They face up to the facts.
Right. And that way, all of the candidates are going to have to address it because Jackson has started addressing it.
Exactly.
They're going to say, okay, Jackson feels this way about this issue, so what do you feel about? How do you feel about it, Dukakis, or how do you feel about it, Bush?
And that puts them in the spot where they have to answer to those questions. And also another thing is we've mentioned that he is religious, and sometimes when a president is, well, I can't say prejudiced, but I mean if he is prejudiced with his religious views, that is not the American president. I mean, like we have Reagan in the administration right now, and he's anti-communism, and of course he initiates or moves all the government actions towards fighting communism and, strays away from the American people. And I think with religion in there, he can also be against, like, he's anti-Semitic. Jackson's
Right.
anti-Semitic. And we can't have somebody who's
against
prejudiced.
Jews.
Right.
He's prejudiced against Jews.
Right, and, and...
That will never work.
Right.
Racist.
He can't be representing all the people if he's,
Right.
segregating one group and,
Right. When you
isolating
start-
them.
Yeah, you start alienating, and you start having a lot of turmoil going on.
And also, he's been described by some of his own party members. For instance, the Democratic chairman, Paul Kirk, has called him a troublemaker. And, well, what do you all feel about that? Do you feel he's a troublemaker, or...?
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to bring up the fact about with his foreign affairs, the deal whenever he sent a letter to Noriega offering his services to help him dealing with President Reagan in the United States. I just thought that was not right for him to do. He's a candidate for the president. He does not yet have the power to fulfill it,
Right, exactly.
He thinks he has more power now.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that once he's president, then I think he can do that, but not right now.
He's overstepping his bounds
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And also, that contradicts what he said in one of his slogans, which is reinvest in America. And here he is going off on a tangent in foreign affairs. I mean, he's met with Noriega in the Panama crisis and Castro.
His ties with Castro are very questionable.
Yes, exactly. So, and, once again, the thing, and he's anti-Semitic and he's, Jaime Town and all that. So I think we need to really evaluate where he stands and what will he do for us. And that's questionable. But I think the New York primaries will bring about, it's an instrumental primary because it's going to really shed some light on who will win the nomination.
And I have a theory. This is just a point. Even if Jackson wins, a majority, I'm not sure if he's going to win a majority, but if he wins close to a majority, I still don't think it's going to be a close run between him and Dukakis for the candidacy, for the nominee. I really don't think, I think that it's basically going to be Dukakis because I think the Democrats want a candidate that has a chance at winning.
Right.
And I think Jackson's too controversial at this point.
Exactly.
He's too much a new thing. Now it's great that he's running, because, we need that kind of spice,
Mhm.
in the campaign to get people thinking.
Charisma.
Right.
Yeah.
To get people thinking about to get them comfortable with electing a black candidate.
Get them used to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, talking about him as a candidate running for the Democratic Party, he would be a detriment because the Democrats do not want another disaster like they
Right.
had in '84 with Mondale. He lost 49 states, and I think the Democrats want a win. And possibly, I've read that a Dukakis as president and Vice President Jackson on the ticket could possibly beat Bush and his runner. So that'll be interesting to see if, in fact, they do run together and do overcome Bush and his administration.
Yeah, they might have like some controversial things going on though too, because Dukakis and Jackson don't always agree. Because Jackson is he does sway way to the left sometimes on
Exactly.
some issues. Other
Foreign
issues,
and economic, he's very much to the left. He's the
Yeah.
farthest left Democratic.
Yeah, I
there
mean,
is.
he totally wants to cut contra aid completely,
Mhm.
and and he wants to do have severe sanctions in South Africa, and this is just a couple.
But he's something that's new, and I think it's made some leeway for blacks in America because he represents a new image, a new phase.
Because we're now seeing it as a possibility.
Right,
It's now a possibility. It's now a definite,
it can happen.
Yeah.
So, do you feel that he has the support of his party for the nomination? Should they support him,
Yeah.
even though he's a Democrat?
Really, that's a good question.
Is it?
Because if you look at the polls, it's
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that they need Dukakis in there because I think Bush right now, if the election was for the presidency, was like right now, I think Bush would win it, and I don't think Jackson against Bush. I think that would not be a close election.
That's good.
I think
Yeah.
Dukakis would make it a closer election. That's why I think they'll elect Dukakis for the closer election. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So.
Yeah. I think he's got a much better chance of doing it. Another thing that is raises questions in my mind about Jackson is his comparing in some ways comparing himself to Martin Luther King.
That's another interesting point about Jackson. I think through lack of time, we'll have to end the show, and I'd like to thank you for all joining us today, but I leave you with two questions. Is Jackson electable, and does the party support him? What didn't I say? Just all pretend like you're on the show's over.
Okay.